Welcome to another episode of Breaking Battlegrounds with yours, Chuck Warren. I'm Sam Stone. Our first guest up today, Dr. Meg Reese, is the founder and CEO of Solid Intel, the first generative AI company focused on de-risking supply chains and intelligence for the U.S. government and commercial sector. And she wrote a great piece that came to our attention in the Washington Post. China's rare earth dominance is secured by American red tape. Dr. Reese, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Dr. Reese, you wrote a great article, a column in the Washington Post. China's rare earth dominance is secured by American red tape. This is an issue Sam and I have talked about for a while. It's something President Trump, unlike any other president, has been focusing on like a laser beam. Explain why we cannot allow China to have rare earth dominance and refining, and why is America red tape killing us in this category?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting in the first Trump administration and continuing through today, the administration started recognizing a massive problem that we allowed ourselves to get into. Starting in the 1980s, when a lot of environmental protections started coming in place, we started deciding that critical mineral processing, as well as a lot of mining, was too dirty to allow to happen in the US. And so we started outsourcing it. And what ended up happening is a lot of mines went overseas, but more than that, critical mineral processing. So critical minerals are the base components of pretty much every technology we rely on, and definitely the technology that the Department of War relies on. All of that processing, most of it started happening in China. And so for a lot of critical mineral processing, there's 90% processing in China. For some of it, it's 100%. So we started allowing in the 80s and through today, 100% processing to happen for a lot of critical mineral and rare earths on what turns out to be a massive, our biggest adversary. And so recognizing that we needed to figure out how to bring that back to the US, or to the US and our reliable allies, became a huge priority of the administration and a number of people in Congress.
Two questions here, a little background for our listeners. First of all, why is it called rare earth minerals when they're really not that rare? And two, how many of the rare earth minerals do we have here in the United States that we would not have to rely on other countries?
Yeah, so rare earths is really a misnomer. You can do the mining of these critical minerals. Rare earths is a subset that we're more reliant on than the broader base of critical minerals. And it turns out the US is a rich, robust country for the mining of the majority of them. We have a couple that we have outside dependencies on, and some of those are necessary for our aeronautics space in particular. So we do have to make sure that we have access to places like the DR Congo and some of these other like really kind of difficult places to operate in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we're kind of moving into figuring out what we can do here, what we can do in other places, make sure that we align our business and strategic objectives so that we're getting at all of those capabilities. And sorry, the second part of your question.
Well, how many rare earth minerals are there, and how many can we mine and process in the United States if we didn't have all this red tape?
Yeah, the vast majority. I think that we're in a position where if we kind of removed a lot of the red tape, which was Donald Trump put out an EO or an executive order in March that basically put a ton of capabilities behind the private sector to start doing almost all of that mining and processing here. And he basically said, we need to cut the red tape. We need to give companies the authority to start doing this without having all of these environmental reviews coming down the pipeline. And unfortunately, it's not happening as fast as the EO allows. So we need to try to figure out, how do we make sure that they can act on this executive order? And when we're saying what is the exact percentage, I don't have it in my head, but I'd say more than 90%.
We're with Dr. Meg Reese. So let's give an example. Let's say we find whatever rare earth mineral in China and the United States. How long does it take China to mine and process that under current under their current management versus the United States? What's the time difference?
Oh gosh, this is going to sound really depressing. Let's say it takes 2-ish years to get a mine online in China, 10 plus years to bring a mine online in the US, and then 2 years to build up the processing capabilities, which is fast, you guys. We can do processing very fast, but expect that there are going to be years, 2 to 5 to 7 years of environmental reviews, restrictions, basically pushback for the processing. So something that should really only take 2 years to bring online could take 10, even though the capabilities, the technical capabilities to restart processing is really
Well,
fast.
and that's if it happens, because you're just going to
Mhm.
have an endless series of environmental lawsuits along the way that you
Yes.
have to bat back. One of the things, Dr. Reese, that I've had conversations with some of my friends here who in Arizona who are involved in the mining
Mhm.
industry say is, hey, they say, look, we have piles of slag from mining
Yes.
operations around the country
Yeah.
over the 100+ years now, and those are full of these type of minerals, and
Yes.
we could just go
Yes.
back and start extracting that and refining those.
Correct.
And yet they say those are actually some of the hardest stores to get at, because once a mine closes, the federal government is all over it for its cleanup and
Yeah.
control a lot of access.
Yeah. And what I think needs to happen is these have a lot of these sites have gone through environmental reviews before,
Right.
which means that they've already been permitted at some point. So they've gone into these essentially temporary status of they're not totally offline, but they're mostly offline. We need to be able to surge production at these particular sites. There are actually a number of different categories of locations where honestly, I think the government needs to be able to go in and say, we've done some initial reviews. We should be able to limit some of these pushback against environmental reviews and then do them either concurrently or make sure that they're already in place so you don't need to go through these processes and just start surging processing at these sites.
Obviously, there's always some sort of engineering challenges around mining, but much like we are doing and talking about in zoning for construction, shouldn't
Mhm.
we simply designate areas as open mining areas where you don't have to go through this extensive process, where it's a by right mining ability?
Oh, I 1,000% agree with you. And honestly, a lot of these sites the reason why this idea I think is a very good one is for the most part, these sites have gone through these reviews in the past. You don't need to restart the process. You don't need to have concurrent reviews happen over and over and over. And that's what the Trump EO is trying to get at is to get these expedited permitting permits in place so that companies can restart these processes very, very quickly. It's not the technical know how that the US lacks, it's the ability to surge production based on the permitting issues in place.
We're great at getting things done. We're just not good at telling Greenpeace no.
No, no. Well, you frankly need a bull in a china
Yeah.
closet like
Yeah.
Trump. So, Meg, so Wall Street Journal reported yesterday or the day before that a trove of critical minerals uncovered in the Utah desert. There's a mineral production company called Ionic, said they discovered 16 rare earth and critical materials in the southern Utah desert, and they're already, they've already received the permits and stuff for mining. How
Yeah.
important is a finding like that for our efforts?
At this point, so the US doesn't actually need huge, enormous stocks of these critical minerals. You don't actually need it in large quantities. So if you can figure out ways to find even like smaller subsets of these and restart mining and processing, we can actually surge these capabilities and reduce our dependencies very, very fast. And so yeah, I used to work with Utah mining groups and defense groups all of the time. And so it doesn't surprise me even in the slightest that this stuff is being discovered in Utah. And they actually have pretty great leadership there that wants to search this production. So it's going to be very, very helpful as long as there are not these concurrent federal reviews that end up being issued.
one of the things that it sort of just occurred to me on this, but do we have national stockpiles of these minerals like we do with oil? Is there a national reserve kept?
There is at the Department of War's a national defense stockpile, but unfortunately, it has been reduced pretty much every year since the early 80s. And so, something that I did when I was a staffer in the Senate is we actually tried to put in place a couple of mandates to increase those stockpiles. So, Senator Ernst of Iowa, for instance, and a lot of other members were pushing money to be able to search these stockpiles. And then we were actually trying to figure out different ways to expedite processing. However, they're vastly understocked, and without continued support from the administration, I just don't see these stockpiles getting up to their capacity. What what happened this year, though, with what's called the MP Materials deal? So this is a mining company, and then a couple others have followed. Is the stockpile essentially agreed to set a floor for offtake of these minerals, which means that so China loves to do this really, really bad thing where they flood the market with different products, drop the price, and then put US and other companies out of business. And so, with this stockpile, what we were trying to push back when I was in the Senate, I actually wrote legislation with some support. Is we wanted to have the stockpile have a guarantee to these processing and mining companies that they would offtake the minerals at a price that would make sure that they'd be able to continue production even if China flooded the market again. And what we saw with the administration this summer, and now they've done it a couple times, is they have acted on this and they have said, we are going to create a floor for the offtake of the minerals. So when China does this again and it takes this bad action again, these companies will not go out of business and they'll be able to maintain their production levels.
You see, Chuck, we still do have smart ideas in Washington, D.C. They're just not getting implemented is the problem.
Well, she's not in office. That's the problem.
Right.
She's just yapping with us this morning.
We're going to be coming back with more from Dr. Meg Reese here in just a moment, folks. Stay tuned. We have a lot more to talk about. Breaking Battlegrounds coming right back.